it's all gloom and doom for a Monday morning. The forecast now is that at least half of the population will get coronavirus. That doesn't mean to say they're going to die, but they'll get it. And if you get it, you stand a chance of dying, particularly if you're vulnerable like me. And some people would say, get rid of him in any possible way that you possibly can. But, the fact is that this is a dangerous, dangerous thing. And we're seeing a lot of the old things that we saw. People drowning. People crashing jet skis and boats. All the things that killed people before. It's just such a tragedy. It's such sadness that we have not learned. We don't seem to have learned anything. When are we going to realize that we can't beat nature? I don't care whether you're religious or you're not. Nature has a way of, as I always remember that wonderful phrase that an economist intelligence unit professor once said to me, the market rose up and spanked them. Well, nature is rising up and spanking us. And how many people have to be spanked before we realize that we are in some sort of trouble? How many? Anyway, shall we talk about nicer things? What's nice to talk about? Well, the fact is, of course, is that those people rush to the beach because it is rather pleasant out there. Pleasant if you like lots of heat. But certainly I would take the heat over the cold any time. And I have worked and lived for a little while in sub-Saharan Africa, where it gets very, very hot indeed, and consistently so. One of the things that we forget the effects of climate change and what man can do in terms of altering the face of the earth. When you fly to Lagos, and other points in Africa, of course, but I've flown to Lagos, and I've flown to Abuja in Nigeria, and I've flown to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. But for the first two, you spend a long time flying over the Sahara Desert. And as you fly, you can see all these gullies made by water. And of course, the first thing that comes to mind is, what on earth are those gullies doing down there? There is no water. It's barren, barren desert. And I once asked a university professor, where did Hannibal get his elephants when he raided Rome in, about 200 AD, 300 AD? Or perhaps it was even before. It was earlier than that. I've forgotten my history. But anyway, Hannibal, the king of Carthage, attacked Rome, which was then the great empire, and he had an army of elephants, famously took them over the Alps and scared the living daylights out of the Romans. If it wasn't for a general called Fabius, who actually decided on terror tactics, hit and miss, raised from the rear, rather than facing this vast army of elephants and so on, then Rome would have had it. Be that as it may. My professor said, but of course, Keith, in those days North Africa was lush. It was full of forests. It was man that started to cut it down. Climate change that did away with these vast forests. So when you fly over the Sahara, what you see is the remains of rivers and gullies and lakes. Thousands of them, but no water. Surely we should start to hold that up, shouldn't we? People say, why do you bother to teach ancient history? Why do you bother to teach the classics in school? Because you learn things like that, which other people don't learn, don't care about, until suddenly they find that their environment is threatened, their life is threatened. And in Lewis, along with the rest of the country, we are now going to be faced with this daft government thing. I mean, what a daft government we've got. I must say I've been right of centre. Some people would say far right of centre. No, I'm not. I'm not extreme in the least. And in fact, I'm happily balanced about a lot of things, I think. But I am right of centre when it comes to damaging the environment and to stop some of the things that the right is doing. building houses and houses and houses. Who says that the philosophy that everybody should have a house is the right one? Not every country agrees with that. Many continental countries encourage people to rent. Many continental countries have built high-rise apartments which have worked. Because they haven't worked here, because as usual, everybody's fingers were in the till. They haven't worked here. That doesn't mean to say that they couldn't. So what are we going to do? We're going to devastate our environment. We're going to build and build and build so that our children can have a roof over their head, but when they go outside, they'll go into a ghetto. They'll go into a slum. Wow. Have we given some thought to that? And if you think that I'm uttering absolute hot air and BS this morning, go and read, as I said before, go and read on the internet, Lewis I, Leweseye, because a very thoughtful piece has been done, and an analysis has been done of the Lewis plan and what the government is now saying that means. What it means is we've lost our right to say no. If you've got a plot of land next door to you and somebody wants to come and build a high-rise flat that's going to block you out and take away your sunlight, you've got no right anymore to say no. Well, how have we come to that? Incidentally, this morning all this ranting is coming from Keith Hayes with Rouser Radio, which comes out of Lewis and is in fact developing into a little radio station on air, online, for the people around Lewis. You're very welcome to listen if you're not around Lewis. But there is a web page on Facebook called The Local. And The Local broadcasts, or you can find the broadcast of this little radio station for half an hour each day, and you can listen in to see what I have to say and shout and yell at me and call me all idiotic names. That's good fun. But also the very good pieces that we do on Mirador Television will be there as well, and particularly those that pertain to The Local. So by the time we actually hit September, we hope that The Local will be going, and we'll be bringing news and information in a different sort to Lewis, this wonderful little town, almost on the south coast. It's on the River Ouse, in fact, which wends its way down. The River Ouse is tidal. Sometimes you can see the bank and sometimes you can't. It's also a flood risk. It has burst its banks on several occasions and the town has been flooded. With these thunderstorms, will that sort of thing happen again? I don't know. Some people that I know think that we didn't learn the lesson of 2000, 20 years ago, when the whole area flooded, lives were lost, property damaged, and that we haven't actually gone to the extent we said at the time when we were frightened and we were worried of setting in place flood defences. I'm not an engineer. I don't know whether that's true or not. But the fact is, we must get back to a society that starts asking questions. What is good for the whole, not what is good for me as an individual? I believe in the individual. I'm a great man for Jenkins' Ear War, the war that Britain fought against the Portuguese. Portuguese? Yes, the Portuguese. Because one of their customs cutters off the West Indies cut off the ear of one of the captains of our men of war. So we actually went out and did a little revenge jobby. For an individual. Isn't that wonderful? But by the same token, as a society, we really have to look out for the society as well as the individual. There must be plenty of ways in which you can have both. Protect rights, but by the same time have a collective will to do what is right for us as mankind, and for us particularly as mankind in this country. No, Keith, don't be so damn silly. Don't be so damn silly. We can't have that. It makes too much sense. Oh, dearie me. You see, I keep on trying hard. to think about good things this morning, and I'm finding it very hard to think about good things. However, let me say to you that you are welcome to try and find on Facebook The Local. Have a listen. It will soon carry a daily half-hour television program designed for local people. For the moment, it's showing or listening. You can listen to this rant and rave, Rouser Radio on it, and a few video on demand pieces from Mirador Television. But soon it will have a half hour dedicated, or an hour dedicated, to things which are of concern to the local population, to Louisians. That doesn't mean to say we won't encourage everybody else to listen, because what we've found is that what happens in a little town like Lewis quite often has wider applications around the world. That people say, oh gosh, yeah, that's happened here as well. It's amazing how we replicate in small towns what's going on in the world. And it's amazing how the big boys who legislate in London, in Edinburgh, in Washington, in Melbourne, is it, in Australia, get themselves so isolated from public opinion that they haven't a clue what it is that makes us all tick. And yet all they've really got to do is to start to listen to the voices of a tiny town. Right, this is Rouser Radio. It's 6:58. We started 2 minutes late this morning. God bless you, Jack DeManio. You came to my aid again to make sure that I don't go so potty that I'm on the straight and narrow all the time. But that was because I couldn't find our logo. We've got a nice little logo. When you find this, you'll see Rouser Radio with a rouser in it, and a rouser is a firework, a firecracker. And I was determined we were not going to go on the air this morning until I found it, and I put it up there so you could recognise what it is that you're likely to listen to. Oh my God. Well, I'm not playing ins and outs this morning for the so let's go out with let's see, yes, 0659. Let's go out with Pavement Sunset. And you've been listening to Keith Hayes ranting on Rouser Radio this morning, coming from Lewis in East Sussex, not Lewis, Delaware, although we love Lewis, Delaware. Till tomorrow, toodle pip.